Number 7. Manifesto of Murder. Friends of John Brian Altinger became suspicious when the 38-year-old did not return from a date he had been bragging on endlessly about in April of 2011. Their suspicions turned into increasing worry when Altinger sent them all a series of emails stating that his date had decided to take him on an extended vacation to Costa Rica. Altinger also sent in a letter of resignation to the oil field where he worked as an equipment manager. No forwarding address was given for his final paycheck, and the email sent to his friends could not be responded to. Police in Alberta, Canada were notified, and an investigation was launched into Altinger's possible disappearance. When friends broke into the man's condominium, they found his passport and dirty dishes, giving no evidence of Altinger going out of Canada anytime soon. Law enforcement began looking into the mysterious woman Altinger was supposedly going on a date with. The woman was an attractive younger woman Altinger had interacted with on Plenty of Fish. No evidence tied Altinger's disappearance with Mark Twitchell, but the filmmaker indicted himself when he claimed Altinger had sold him his car the night before. Had he not gone to the police, they probably would have never known about Twitchell. Twitchell now became a suspect, and several incriminating evidences led police to book him for the suspected murder of Altinger. While in custody, police discovered a manifesto on Twitchell's laptop titled SK Confessions, or Serial Killer Confessions. The file had been deleted, but was retrieved from Twitchell's computer. The manifesto detailed the harrowing incident. Twitchell pretended to be a woman on dating sites to lure unsuspecting men to his garage. Once there, he would bludgeon them to death and then stab them repeatedly before dismembering their bodies and disposing of them in the woods. Police believed that Altinger was Twitchell's first victim, but a first attempt had been made some months prior, with the victim managing to escape. Twitchell had graduated from the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology with a degree in radio and television arts. The man had directed and written several fan-based movies, including several Star Wars adaptations. He also harbored an uncanny obsession with popular television serial-killing vigilante Dexter Morgan. For the murder of John Brian Altinger, Mark Twitchell was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Number 6. Body parts. Ingrid Lynn was a 40-year-old nurse residing in Seattle, Washington. The mother of 3 had been in an online relationship with homeless day laborer John Charlton for close to a month before the two decided to meet up for their first date. The date was supposed to take place at the Seattle Mariners game on the evening of April 8th in 2016. The day after, on April 9th, Lynn's ex-husband arrived at her home with their 3 daughters. After several hours of waiting with no response, the ex-husband called Lynn's mother, who arrived with a spare key. Lynn was nowhere to be found, and there was blood, human tissue, and a 15-inch saw in her bathroom. Lynn's mother immediately tried to contact Charlton before calling emergency services. Police arrived at the scene and began their investigation. While the chances of Lynn being alive were slim, they were reduced to none after a homeowner placed a call to local law enforcement to report that a severed head had been found in the recycle bin. The severed head, arm, foot, and leg belonged to Ingrid Lynn. On April 9, 2016, police arrested Charlton on the suspicion of Lynn's murder. Nearly a week later, several other body parts, presumably belonging to Lynn, were found scattered throughout the area. Charlton initially pleaded not guilty to the charges. He claimed that the couple had gone to the game as planned, returned to Lynn's home, and the next thing Charlton knew was that he was on the sidewalk, passed out, and with multiple cuts to his face. The man tried claiming insanity as a defense, but eventually pled guilty to all charges. For the murder of Ingrid Lynn, John Charlton was sentenced to 27 years and 9 months in prison for a case of homicidal violence. Number 5. First date and last date. Stephen Fabi was a suspect in the disappearance of Leanne Swanson, a 45-year-old Michigan native. Swanson had been reported missing by her family after she failed to return home following a night out November 16th in 2012 with Fabi. However, before police had a chance to speak to Fabi, the 30-year-old man shot himself to death at his home on North Fox Road, 30 feet from where Fabi had shot himself. Police found Swanson's lifeless body in the neighbor's wooded property. An investigation was launched by the Midland County Sheriff's Department, but it didn't take long to tie Fabi to the murder of Swanson. However, with no witnesses, victims, or culprits, no motive could ever be established for the apparent murder-suicide. According to Swanson's mother, the two had met online and are planning on going out for their first date on November 16th. Her mother reportedly felt uneasy about the idea of her meeting Fabi, but Swanson reassured her. Swanson even called her once she reached the planned destination to let her know that nothing was off. 2 days later, Swanson's mother received a phone call from her daughter stating that she was on her way back home. That was the last contact she had with Swanson. After she didn't return home by November 20th, Swanson's family lodged a missing persons report with the Midland County Sheriff's Department. While on their way to question Fabi about his date's whereabouts, police heard a gunshot from the residence. They called out for whoever was inside to come out, and a man emerged holding a phone with a 911 dispatch on the line stating that his son had just shot himself. Stephen Fabi's Facebook profile revealed a disturbing insight into his life. He claimed that he was retarded, alone, and a wicked nice guy. The two had met on a popular dating site, Meet Me. What's the worst first date you ever had? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 4. Too pushy. Family members last saw Ashley Pegram as she was leaving for a date on April 3rd in 2015. The 28-year-old single mother of 3 told family members that she would be back either later that day or the next morning. The next time her family saw her was when they were called in over a month later to identify a badly decomposed body police had found in a shallow grave in the woods. Police suspected the body belonged to Pegram. It did. During her month-long disappearance, police zeroed in on her date that night, Edward Bonilla, as the prime suspect. The 30-year-old was initially charged with obstruction of justice when Pegram's blood was found in his van and around his home. He gave the police this story. Bonilla and Pegram had reportedly been in contact since March of 2015, but had decided to go on their first date in April. According to Bonilla, they went to his brother's house for a party, where Pegram began drinking heavily. On the ride back, Pegram said she had to use the restroom. Bonilla pulled over to let her out and claims he accidentally hit her with his car. On accident. Getting hit by the car made Pegram mad, and he said she started kicking his vehicle. The two started arguing. Bonilla claimed that tensions had been high all evening since Pegram believed Bonilla stole her mother's phone. After she started kicking his car, Bonilla placed her in a chokehold, which is how he believes she died. Bonilla said in his testimony that he tried to hide the body out of panic. At first, he just left her on the side of the road, but later returned with a van to move her body. Pegram was bleeding from her head, so Bonilla taped a plastic bag around her head before loading her in the van to carry her to Harleyville, where her body was eventually discovered using Bonilla's cell phone location. Bonilla's ex testified in court that he was capable of being forceful. She said that they broke up when Bonilla was getting too pushy. Bonilla claimed that Pegram's death was nothing more than an accident. However, a jury found him guilty of murder and sentenced him to life in prison. Number 3. British backpacker. On the 9th of December 2018, law enforcement found a suspiciously placed suitcase in the Waitakere Ranges, 12 miles west of central Auckland. Inside was the lifeless body of a young female who had been visibly battered and bruised. The body was later identified as Grace Mullanes, a 22-year-old British woman and a recent graduate from the University of Lincoln. Mullane had arrived in New Zealand on November 20th. She had just spent the past 6 months in South America and would now be staying for 2 weeks in New Zealand. The British backpacker's family first became concerned over whereabouts when Mullane failed to respond to their birthday wishes on December 2nd. Police were notified and a missing persons report was launched. CCTV footage revealed Mullane walking into City Life Hotel in Auckland's Central District with an unidentified man on December 1st. The man was later identified as 27-year-old Jesse Kempson, someone Mullane had met on Tinder. The night she went missing was the night she went on her first date with Kempson. Kempson was immediately apprehended by the police, and he initially denied any liability whatsoever. He was taken into custody on December 8th in connection to Mullane's disappearance, but was later booked for her murder on December 10th. Once the body was discovered, Kempson's story changed, and he claimed that Mullane died as a result of rough, consensual sex. After a 3-week trial, a unanimous decision was reached by the jury, and Jesse Kempson was charged with the murder of Grace Mullane. He was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole in 17 years. Number 2. Bar date. In the midst of a messy custody battle with her estranged husband, Nicole White decided to ease her mind by meeting a man she had been speaking to online for a first date at a local bar. The Enumclaw, Washington native was a mother of two, and friends suggested that she had been having a hard time in the months leading up to June of 2008. White had been speaking to Jonathan Daniel Harris via instant messages for some time before the two finally decided to meet at Jeepers Country Bar and Grill in Spanaway, Pierce County. White picked up Harris from his residence. They went to the bar and then drove back to the Harris residence. Witness reports suggested nothing out of the ordinary while the two were at the bar. Investigation revealed that Harris had asked White if she wanted to go back to his place, and she agreed. Family members lodged a missing persons report after the mother of two did not return home the next morning. 2 weeks later, police dogs found White's body wrapped in a green tarp at the bottom of a wooded ravine south of Lake Caposin. The medical examiner ruled she died from blunt force trauma. Her body was a mess. She had a fractured skull, several broken ribs, and several bruises. Police immediately booked Harris on suspicion of White's murder. He was ultimately charged with the offense when investigations revealed that he had traveled to where White's body was found. A sweatshirt was retrieved from his residence, which had White's blood all over it. The jig was up. Harris's attorney argued that Harris had a terrible and abusive childhood and that he suffered from trauma. But lots of people have terrible childhoods and don't kill people. For the murder of Nicole White, Jonathan Daniel Harris was charged with 316 months in prison. Number 1. Hate crime. On the night of October 8th in 2006, Michael Sandy interacted with Anthony Fortunato in an online chat room. The 29-year-old had been working as a display worker at IKEA in Hicksville, New York. Fortunato was a 20-year-old man who was allegedly also from the area. Their chat soon turned sexual, and either one of the two men, or both of them, proposed the idea of a sexual encounter later that night. Fortunato stated that he would bring along his friend, John Fox, as well. The three planned a meeting at Plum Beach, a rest stop and popular cruising location on Belt Parkway in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. The whole ordeal took less than an hour to plan out. Sandy drove his 2004 Mazda to the meeting location, and Fortunato, Fox, along with Ilya Shurov, 20, and Gary Timmons, 17, arrived there shortly before Sandy. Upon arriving, Sandy was dragged out of his car by Shurov, who punched him in the face repeatedly. Sandy was then assaulted again by 3 of the 4 men, while the 4th scavenged through his vehicle and person to rob him. Witnesses allege that they saw the 2 white men beating up Sandy on October 8th. In the midst of the ordeal, the 4 men chanted racial and homophobic slurs at Sandy. The 29-year-old somehow managed to escape and made his way onto the highway. The disgruntled and battered Sandy was hit by a vehicle on the highway and died several days later at the hospital. During questioning after arrest, the suspects made statements indicating that they had used the internet to lure gay men in the past. The 4 men received various sentences, ranging from 17 to 21 years in prison. Thanks for watching. Have you ever had a blind date gone wrong? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye.